Between now and Election Day, we are zeroing in on swing states. This week, our spotlight is on Florida. 30 electoral votes up for grabs in the Sunshine State. For years, it was considered one of the most crucial battlegrounds, but we've seen a shift in recent elections. Former President Obama winning the state in 2008 and 2012, and then the flip to red. This is when former President Trump was running in the race. In the last two presidential races, polling shows he has the popularity there to make it a 3 in a row. Right now, he leads Vice President Harris by nearly 5 percentage points, according to an average of state polls. I want to bring in Drew McCoy, president of Decision Desk HQ. Drew, thanks for making time to be here. Any one of us who traveled to Florida in the last 8 years knows that so many folks that move there because of their politics. Yes, the sunshine, yes, the wealth, but also the fact that they can say this is really America. What are your thoughts?
Well, good morning, and it's great to be with you. Yeah, we've seen a lot of changes in voter registration patterns in Florida that may reflect that for sure in the last 4 or 5 years. Republicans have overtaken Democrats. Even no party affiliation, sort of independents, were very popular for a long time, but the Republicans have just made tremendous strides and have turned something like 100,000 voter registration deficit to the Democrats into about a 200,000 or so plus for them. So there definitely have been changes in the makeup of the Florida electorate over the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and a loosening once the ban was over in Florida, a loosening of some of the restrictions to businesses and to individuals during the COVID pandemic. We often talk about Florida and the Latino community, particularly the Cuban vote. In terms of how large of a contingent the former president has of Latinos, how much do Cubans make up his very secure base, the Latinos who continue to stick with him since 2016?
Yeah, it's a really interesting voting bloc that people watching Florida politics are looking at closely. When Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in 2016 ran, she won Miami-Dade, sort of the center of that community, by double digits. Joe Biden only won it by 9, and then you look at in 2022, Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio both carried it. So we've seen, 15, 20-point swings in that community to the Republican Party. And that's obviously something Donald Trump is going to want to maintain and grow if possible.
And obviously a very popular Republican governor, Governor Ron DeSantis, showing a strong stance during the crises of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. How will those back-to-back hurricanes impact voter turnout, impact polling locations, and anything else, any other metrics ahead of Election Day?
Yeah, it's obviously something that is being worked out. Obviously, the most important part is recovery and any rescues that had to be accomplished first. And now I think officials are starting to work on that. Early in-person voting in Florida is very popular, especially among Republicans, talking about the Trump coalition. That starts next week, next Monday. Counties can do that. So they'll be rolling that out over the course of the next week. About 2/3 of the counties will start next Monday, and then a handful between Monday and the following Saturday. So we'll be keeping an eye on that turnout number. It's always a little dangerous to read too much into it, but certainly that'll be our first indication about any potential effects the storms have had, at least on voters being able to get out and exercise their vote in a way that's very popular in that state.
In terms of, there's a couple of things I want to ask you about. In terms of Decision Desk and then polling in all, when the 2016 elections predicted a win by the first female to run for president, Hillary Clinton, and then those hopes were dashed, things changed. There have been a lot of people who've said that polling has typically underestimated the former president's lead and impact. What are we seeing this time around?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's one of those things we'll be able to see in retrospect. Most people will say there is a polling error expected. The question is whether it continues to be underestimating Donald Trump or potentially it could swing in favor of the Democrats. We've seen that in the past. Barack Obama, in his runs, the polls estimated his support very often. They were pretty good in 2022. So it's not necessarily a given that just because we've had 2 GOP favoring polling errors in the last 2 elections that we'll see at this time. But again, unfortunately, that's something we'll only know in the rearview mirror how it turned out.
All right. Well, we expect to continue to watch this, and we always appreciate our partnership with Decision Desk DDHQ. Thank you so much, Drew, for being with us.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.